Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the Bridgewater Town Council. It is Tuesday, October 5th, 2021 at 7 p.m. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have two condolences this evening on behalf of the Town Council. Our condolences to the family of Kenneth M. Whitman upon his passing on September 25th, 2021. Mr. Whitman served the United States Air Force. Second one is to the family of Martin Luttrell of his passing on September 16th, 2021. Mr. Luttrell served in the United States Navy, during the Gulf War. Now I'd like to take a moment of silence in recognition for all those veterans that have passed and first responders. Okay, just want to remind everyone this meeting is being aired live and recorded pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This meeting of the Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater will be fully remote and accessible to the public through remote participation to the greatest extent possible. There will be no in-person attendance permitted. Citizens who wish to tune into the meeting may do so via Zoom or Facebook Live. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our previous meeting on 9/21/2021. Entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, excellent. Move for a roll call vote.
Mr. George,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Rushton,
Yes.
Mr. Souza,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Columbotus.
Yes.
Thank you. 8 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, moving on. Item B, announcements from the president. I do have one quick announcement. I think it's only fair to sort of put to rest for the council our attempt to go into hybrid mode or return in person. Is my intention as council president in terms of planning to remain fully remote through Zoom and Facebook through the end of 2021 and sometime in December, plan for January of 2022 for a full return to the council chambers. Okay, moving on. C, proclamations. We have none. D, citizens open forum. Do we have any citizens wishing to speak in open forum? If so, just your name and address. Josh, I do not see any. Do you see any here?
No, I do not see anyone.
Okay, moving on to appointments, we have none. Moving on to hearings, we have none. Moving on to licensed transactions, we have none. Moving on to presentations, our first presentation, Precincton, final presentation from the town clerk. Marilee Hunt, the floor is yours. Thank you for coming in this evening.
Thank you so much. Josh, do I have sharing privileges?
Yep, you're all set.
Okay, let me see if I can do this. Here we go. Greetings, counselors. Thank you, President Rushton, and through you to the citizens of Bridgewater. I hope this will be my final, or maybe almost, maybe there might be hopefully one more small presentation, not nearly this, just not a big presentation, but hopefully it's our final recommendation for Bridgewater's re-precincting. And here we go. Find my down. So let's do a quick review. We've had 2 earlier presentations explaining this 2-pronged process. One prong is the town clerk and the Commonwealth, And we've been studying, and now we're recommending re-precincting design, and we're presenting it to the town council for approval. We will be presenting it tonight, not for approval tonight, but presenting it tonight. The second prong is the town council itself, which, understanding the re-precincting recommendation, the council is charged with fixing the charter to allow for the new re-precincting configuration. What we've done to date. The town clerk has acknowledged and shared with the town council. Let's see, all my pictures are getting in my way here. I got to get rid of them. The end of 7 precincts. We're not going to be able to have 7 precincts in Bridgewater any longer. I think I've made that clear from the beginning. No 9 councilors with 7 precincts and 2 at large. We've made clear the need to change the charter by removing the requirement for 7 precinct councilors. And we've emphasized at council meetings and at Rules and Procedure Committee, that same thing. We've worked continuously with the Commonwealth to create maps from which an appropriate new precincting plan was determined. And tonight we're making a final precincting recommendation to the council. Our recommendation is, this is the basis for our recommendation. It's possible. And as we know, not all things have been possible. This one is possible. I believe it's good for democracy. I believe it will increase voter involvement and voter turnout, which is always good for our town and all democratic institutions. It's long lasting. It should hold us through 2050, when probably most of us aren't going to be here to see what happens then. And it's doable with relatively small addition to our current resources. And let's see if this works. Here it is. Okay, go. I'm done with you. No, I don't want to do it again. Okay, here's our recommendation. 9 precincts and 9 councilors at large. And 9 reasons why that's the best way to go. It will retain the current number of councilors, which was a council priority, which I heard. It allows the population to grow to 36,000. With steady growth over the next 2 to 3 census cycles, we won't need to re-precinct until probably 2050 or even possibly 2060. It makes each councilor belong to all the citizens. The overarching community involvement from the council will be felt a shared concern for the whole town. All councilors concerned for the whole town. It's definitely going to make it easier for councilors to gather signatures for nominations. There won't be any more small precinct syndrome, where constituents are fewer because state institutions' populations count in the census, but are not voters. It simplifies ballot production and distribution. All citizens will vote the same ballot. And you might wonder what I mean by that. In some of our other iterations, if we'd kept precinct councilors of 6 for 6 precincts, and then 6 for 12 precincts in 6 districts, we would have had separate ballots for 3 different precincts every annual election. It would have been quite confusing for citizens and very confusing for the town clerk's office. Every election will include 3 councilors, which I believe will bring a more consistent voter participation, a reason for voters to come every year to vote. And it maintains 1 central voting location, which is very important. Also to reduce the confusion for citizens. It will minimize the cost of expansion and keep voters knowing where they're going when they head out for an election. This is the map. Thanks to Carlton Hunt, we have actual numbers that you can read. You can see that the if we were trying to read the letters, the little white numbers like this number 9 right here, were pretty hard, but I'll let you all take a minute to grasp this. These are the two new precincts, 8 and 9. I'm going to show you what they're comprised of in just a minute, but I'll let you take a look. We can always come back to it and look at it more. So this is how these were comprised. The proposed new precinct 1 is made up of 30 census blocks from the current precinct 1 and 1 census block from the current precinct 4, and on as it goes. Precinct 2 is made up of all, it's everything in it is already a census block in number 2, but it does not have all the current number 2 census blocks, if that makes sense. The same thing in number 3. It has 46 of the current census blocks, but there are others, as you'll see. 4 has 37 blocks from current number 4 and 10 blocks from number 1. 5 has 3 census blocks from number 2, 14 from number 5, and 1 from number 2, with a population of 3. I just threw that in because I thought that was kind of amusing. 6 has 22 census blocks from number 6. 8 has census blocks from 3. Or no, yeah, 6 has 8 census blocks from number 3. Sorry about that. 7 has 37 census blocks from number 7 and 12 from 1. 8, 10 from number 7, 18 from 6, and 1 from 2. And 9, 7 census blocks from 2, 10 from 3, 12 from 4, and 7 from 5. And do not ask me how they determine census blocks because I don't know. So if we want to look at these new precincts by population, I arranged them from smallest to biggest. Quite interestingly, number 5 is the biggest. And if you remember, I'll go back to the map. You see number 5? So this is our biggest population block. This is the one that's given us the most trouble in trying to re-precinct. As I had explained to you in former presentations, there's a large population there at the university that made it difficult for us to find equal population for precincts. You can see here's our current census right now, 28,633. And you can see that these are all generally the same population. The difference between the largest and the smallest is 264 people. So brief explanations here. Precincts 4 and 5 are geographically small because they include state institutions in their census blocks. And I think I pointed out already that precinct 5 is the largest by population because of the BSU census block. All precincts must be a federal law proportionally populated. It isn't just the voters that are there, it's everyone who's there. And when all the counselors are at large, it will be completely irrelevant how many voters are in a given precinct because the voters will be coming from the entire town. So what will we need and what will it cost? I'm sure you're not really too interested in all of these things, that you're probably looking here for the bottom line, which will mean that just the setup costs, getting new tabulators and tables and just the equipment that we'll need for 2 more precincts is going to cost about $13,500. And then there will be a cost with every election as we go along. And so for 9 precincts, these 2 precincts will add another $3,775 for each election that we do. And I will show you in just a little bit how that comes out per year with the number of elections that we have. These calculations do not include general elections expenses such as hiring movers to set up for us, police details, staff overtime, and that sort of thing, because we can, all of that's going to be consistent. We'll be able to keep us in one voting location. We won't have to separate it into two separate ones and get movers for another place and police details for another place, that sort of thing. This is a pretty busy slide. I'm sorry about that, but there are town charter changes that are going to have to take place for us to do any re-precincting. And I want to note here that there are at least two areas in the town charter that the council must change to accommodate Bridgewater's growth in 2020 re-precincting. I put them here. You can take a look. I won't read them all the way to you. They have to do with 7 members and district councilors in 7 districts. That isn't going to work anymore. Same thing we see here. And then the incredible, always incredible and fabulous Jolie Sprague Martin noted today that there are other sections in the charter that are going to have to be searched out. She found the ones down at the bottom here, section 2.1, things for eligibility, term of office, filling vacancies, and signature requirements. So someone on the council side is going to have to do a little looking and see what all needs to be changed in the charter to be able to let us move to 9 councilors. So I've, as conveyed in the presentations given to you before, time is of an essence. I think I have kind of driven that home probably ad nauseum. The things that are left to do, the town council needs to change the charter. The legislature needs to approve those charter changes, and the town council then needs to approve the final precinct plan. And then, as I pointed out kind of in the last slide, we need to eliminate the requirement for 7 precincts and 2 at-large councilors. We need to replace it with a specific number of councilors. My suggestion is 9. And if you want to put a number in, which seemed evident at our last presentation that you wanted to put a number in for sure. And that you need to search the charter for other councilor corrections as needed, so we don't have any glitches when it comes to that. And then when you want to change, if you want to change precinct councilors to being precinct councilors instead of at-large councilors, or change them from being precinct councilors to being at-large councilors, that's a relatively easier change. Recommend doing it through the administrative code. I spoke with the Representative D'Amelia yesterday, asking him what our chances are to get this up to the legislature and get them to approve. He said that they are crazy. And I'm sure he just meant that, like that they're very busy, that they're crazy busy up at the state legislature, and therefore we can't get things to them fast enough. We should get it to them, he emphasized several times, as quickly as possible. And we definitely do not want to delay, because delay could risk missing the legislature's approval before this has to go to the LADRC for their submission deadline. And we know that if this goes to the LADRC without council approval and all of that sort of thing, they will appoint a manager who will take it out of our hands and make a recommendation that we don't know what it would be. And that's what we will live with for the next 10 years. So we want to get this moving as quickly as possible. So this is what I say is the presumed path that we need to follow. The things in blue are what the Commonwealth requires, and I've taken those from a document that they sent me, so that the town clerk will notify the Commonwealth of the re-precincting recommendation. To do that, in red are the actions that the town council still needs to take. They need to refer the recommendation to rules and procedure. The recommendation needs to be supported by the Bridgewater Charter by offering the changes for the charter. And the rules and procedure needs to take up the existing draft ordinances that were placed there, I believe the end of June, for the precinct charter changes. Number 2, the town clerk has to ask the town council to schedule a vote to approve the map and the re-precincting materials including the charter changes. And I would ask for that on October 19th. That is 2 weeks from tonight, so that we can keep this moving as quickly as possible. Rules and procedure, what the council needs to do is a rules and procedure committee needs to return the proposal and draft ordinances with recommendation to the full council on that date, October 19th, 2021, or at a special town council meeting. And number 2, for the council to have the full council vote on the new draft ordinances and recommend the precinct plan. As soon as possible after that, I will submit the charter. We will submit the charter changes. I presume our town attorney will submit the charter changes to the legislature. And then on a legislative approval of the charter changes, the town clerk will send all materials along with the certified copy of the council signed vote to the Secretary of the Commonwealth, who will send it to the LEDRC. And the LEDRC will approve it. And the new precincts will be ours for the next 10 years until the 2030 census. And so I'm ready to stop sharing if you'd like, and we can discuss any of your questions, concerns, or comments. President Rushton, why don't you let me know? Maybe you want me to leave this up in case we need to go back to any slides?
Marilee, that's fine with me. And I would certainly first thank you for this comprehensive review and what's left for the town council to still take care of. And with that, I just open it up to any members of the council who have any comments or
Okay.
questions. Let's see, Councilor Wood.
Thank you. Good information. Thanks, Marilee.
You're welcome.
So one of the, I guess in the middle there, the concerns, one of the concerns is that the original town charter called for district representation. And we've had 2 charter review committees since then that didn't change district representation. And now it seems like we're being forced through numbers and other ways to almost only have a solution where we have to change our representation away from districts where, you know, people like me champion my particular district. But it sounds like also that the town at large is not going to be able to vote on this, that it's an act of the state to change our charter from district representation to an at-large representation. Is there any other model that we should look at in terms of the representation?
I have one additional model that is for 12 precincts, 6 districts, 6 district counselors, and 3 at-large counselors. It's extremely complex. It's going to be very confusing for voters. It's going to be very expensive. It's going to be exceedingly difficult for the town clerk's office to manage. And when I dealt with it for many weeks, trying to figure out how we could do it and keep the district counselors. And finally, I will tell you very sincerely, I woke up one morning and realized that I had like a dream, not like a vision, but just, you know, anxiety dreams about all of this. And I realized that if we could have 9 counselors serving the whole town and having the whole town invested in all of those counselors and having those counselors all invested in the whole town, there wouldn't be the angst, there wouldn't be the confusion, there wouldn't be the expense. It was a very peaceful feeling. So I'm guessing that you don't feel that way. And I can certainly understand that. I think as I tried to analyze it, and have spoken with several other people, I've asked many people, you know, how often have you called your precinct representative, your district representative, or do you contact someone you know on the council or someone you respect? And most people seem to not use their district counselors. And I understand, Councilor Wood, I truly understand that isn't where you're at. I've watched you proactively work for your district, but I also think, and your district being the downtown is how I'm defining it, I believe that all the counselors have been concerned with the downtown and with the businesses. And I really don't believe there will be any loss. anyone who has personal relationships with citizens in town, those citizens will still be able to contact them regardless of what precinct they live in, and know that they have a counselor for whom they are a constituent, and that it's important for those counselors to respond to them. So, that I don't know if that answers your question, but those are my thoughts about it. I do not believe that the Commonwealth is forcing us. I believe our population is forcing us. We had a very large growth in population. We have to do something to re-precinct that.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Councillor Wood?
Yeah, it's more a concern than a question, just because it hasn't come up in
Okay.
past iterations of charter review or charter creation to have the at-large, and certainly that was an option all those times to make that recommendation. So,
I think our population just, our population and the very large census block have made things difficult.
Councilor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. President. I sat on the very first charter review, and this was brought up, changing the makeup of the council, whether to go all at large or whether to change the districts or make a hybrid. It was even a discussion of making a hybrid district of 4 and 5 because they were so small. But we ended up saying that let's leave it alone because a census change could disrupt any changes that we recommend during a charter review. So we did talk about how a census could automatically trigger an event like this. So that's why there wasn't anything from the first charter review. I don't know what happened in the second charter review. But Marilee, I want to thank you for the work that you did. I know this has been a very stressful time for you and your office trying to come up with a solution and dealing with numbers and dealing with the federal census and the time frame and all that. And I know there's still a lot of tight timelines to go down there, but I like this proposal. I think it's a very good proposal for the town for the future. I think it will generate a lot of interest, more interest in our town elections. It'll be a little more simplified process for those that want to run to get on the ballot. And I think you're right. I think that we will have fair representation throughout the town going 9 at large. So I would encourage, at least to start, that the Rules and Procedures Committee take up the 2 ordinances that I sponsored that were referred to them on June 29th, and that we discuss perhaps what other ordinances need to be written to get this done. So I appreciate the effort you made. I am in support of your recommendation. I think it's a good it's a good fit for the citizens and the taxpayers and the residents of this town.
Thank you.
Any other councilors? Councilor Souza.
Yes. I think what we need to do is to have the rules to the council.
Councilor Souza, if you could just repeat, you got a little hung up there.
Yeah. Okay. I'm suggesting or recommending that the Rules and Procedures Committee have a meeting this coming Monday night, the 11th, to go over these charter changes and come back to the full council on the 19th with a recommendation. You get any of that?
Yep, we got that. And Councilor Souza, I certainly, if you're gonna get a meeting together, I would certainly entertain, a special meeting or another retreat specifically just to talk about these changes. Obviously, Marilee Hunt has done a significant amount of work, and I don't want to see the ball dropped on our end. So if we need to plug in an extra meeting, we can do that. So it just provide me some guidance as to what your committee's doing.
Okay, so we could have the committee meeting on the 11th and a special council meeting on Tuesday the 12th, 1 week from today, and then come back to the council.
Could I say one thing? I realized Monday is a holiday.
Yep.
Monday, the 11th is a holiday. So perhaps Councilor Souza, and earlier before a council meeting on Tuesday, the
Yeah,
rules and procedure could meet.
Let me just move on from this presentation. Unless other
Yeah.
comments or questions, we can debate the date of the rules and procedures meeting later. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. Does any other members of the council have a question or comment? Okay, seeing none. Marilee, I certainly echo Councilor Gallagher's comments and certainly appreciate all of the work that you have put into this, not just for this presentation, but over the last several months, closely watching the changes and providing guidance for us. And it's certainly appreciated by the entire council. So thank you. And thank you for coming in tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next presentation, Plymouth County Commissioners CARES and ARPA update. Commissioner Jared Bazzello. Hope I probably messed that one up.
No, thank you, President
see-
Rushton. It's gonna be-
Sandra, you're here?
It's gonna be me tonight.
Well, why didn't you tell me? It just would have been a lot easier saying your name.
Well, that's true.
Introduce
I have
Sandra
an
Wright.
easy, I have an easy name, yes. Good evening, Bridgewater Town Council, manager, and the residents of Bridgewater. Thank you for having me this evening. I do want to send regrets from Commissioner Hanley, Commissioner Valenzola, and Treasurer Tom O'Brien that have other commitments out in the other 27 communities. I'm talking this evening about the CARES Act. When I think back about when it first started, 19 months has passed since the county first decided to take on the challenge to manage the CARES Act program, which at that time, all odds were against us, probably for good reasons. These funds were meant to save many communities from the burden of financial cuts due to the pandemic. And with Plymouth County managing the program, we were able to save or to do it in less than 1%, leaving more money on the table for our communities. That I would have to give great credit to our treasurer, Tom O'Brien, and his staff. I would like to thank Mr. Dutton and his staff for the incredible work that they were able to provide to the county, which is not an easy task on their part. This was also new to so many of us that it was really a learning curve. And I'd like to report today that Treasurer O'Brien and I met with Mr. Sal Monte this afternoon. We were able to give the town of Bridgewater $641,429.40, making a total of $2,034,572.52 that we have distributed to Bridgewater so far. The county commissioners voted to approve phase 7, allocating more money to the town of Bridgewater. Before I end on the CARES Act, I'd like to change gears just a little bit and talk briefly about the ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. On March 11th, 2021, the President of the United States signed into law the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. This law provides resources through the new coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund to local governments to respond to the public health emergency caused by the coronavirus disease. ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan, provides eligible state, local, territory, and tribal governments with resources to meet pandemic response needed to rebuild a stronger economy as the country recovers. We since then have hired an accounting firm and are beginning to roll out the ARPA program for our communities. There's a lot of information and daily everything seems to be changing. So with that, I would refer you to our website, www.plymouthcountyarpa.com. Or certainly if anybody has any questions, they can certainly reach out to our treasurer, Tom O'Brien. It's really been a pleasure meeting with you people. We've been happy to help you in regaining some of these monies back to your community and helping in any way that we can. Do we have any questions or?
Sandra, thank you very much on behalf of the council to all of the commissioners and certainly all of the work that you do as well. I would certainly open it up to any comments or questions from the members of the council. Okay, seeing none, I guess, thank you very much, Sandra. Maybe next time you bring us another check.
We're hoping to. We've allocated phase 7.
Awesome, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Okay, moving on to the town manager's report. First item is the Mitchell School update.
All right, Mr. President, thank you. Very short report this evening. The Mitchell School update work does continue as planned and on schedule and slightly ahead of schedule in some areas and slightly behind schedule in other areas, all to be expected. Contractors, just to give you an idea what they're working on, they're working on the stairs, interior stairs, utilities, both under slab and in ceiling. Exterior work continues, site work continues, and just as the plan shows, they are starting on the Wally Kruger Way portion next week. I think if you remember last meeting, I reported that there were some issues with the road. I'll have a better idea of what those issues are specifically sometime next week, so we can go from there. The contractor right now is building temporary access for both Conant Center and the Senior Center. So there shouldn't be any issue. That's emergency access, so there won't be public access to those buildings, but for fire vehicles, there does need to be access. As I mentioned, timeline is still good with a projected completion date of beginning of July 2022, move in fall of 2022. The next committee meeting is Monday, October 18th. Excuse me. Monday, October 18th at 6 p.m. It's over Zoom, so anybody's certainly welcome to attend. And lastly, anybody wanting more information, www.bridgewaterschoolproject.com. And but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Councilor George.
Thank you, through you to the town manager. So within the report, Mr. Dutton, on Wally Kruger Way, you'll have a better idea of what needs to get fixed. You'll also have the information in regards to the contractor that was responsible for building it. And I think I'd also like to see potential next steps in regards to not only ascertaining the additional expense to fix the work, but what the town has for recourse against, from what I can tell, is real insufficient quality building. Thank you.
Correct. That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, seeing none, moving on. COVID-19 update.
Again, Mr. President, pretty quick update. We now have, we're down to 15 reported cases. We were at a high of about 30 reported cases, a little over 30 reported cases. We're down to 15. That's 13 adults, 2 children. We don't show any hospitalizations, but I do caution that we don't always have access to that information in a timely manner. So vaccination rate is incrementally higher. We're at 56% fully vaccinated in Bridgewater. 61% have at least 1 shot. So again, incrementally higher there, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council? Okay, moving on. Next item, discussions. First item is the ad hoc council clerk selection discussion. Councilor Chase.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've added this discussion to our agenda tonight to more fully alert the council to the ongoing work of the ad hoc committee and to provide an opportunity for comments or questions. I've twice previously offered updates by way of a committee report to the council, but it appeared evident at our last council meeting that more time should be allotted with an opportunity for council input. The ad hoc committee is comprised of councilors George, Souza, and myself. I serve as chair of the committee. The committee receives resumes for review, which have been determined by the town's HR generalist to meet minimal requirements for candidate consideration. All identifying information for those candidates has been redacted from the resumes presented to the committee. It should be noted that the town has received a large number of resumes which do not reflect appropriate experience or qualifications for this position. At the outset of the committee's discussions, it was determined that the search process would be best expedited by designation of 3 persons to act as interviewers. The persons selected by the committee for that role are President Rushton, Mrs. Holmberg, and myself. It was clear to the committee that the interview process conducted by more than 3 interviewers would be cumbersome, needlessly time-consuming, and duplicative. To date, the interviewers have met with 3 candidates for the position who have appeared in person in the Academy building. The sessions have been conducted in hybrid mode, permitting both in-person and remote meeting access. 2 candidates were invited to return for second interviews. 1 candidate was not. The candidates to whom a second interview opportunity was extended each accepted the invitation and were each found to be suitable candidates for final consideration. One of the finalists was selected by the interviewers to receive an offer of employment, subject to satisfactory background investigation, reference review, and skill assessment. Prior to extension of an offer for employment, this candidate raised questions not previously posed concerning compensation and the flexibility of scheduling for the position. Upon further discussions, it was determined that an offer of employment satisfactory to this candidate could not be extended. The interviewers determined that the remaining candidate, who had also participated in a second interview session, should be considered for employment. A conditional offer of employment was extended to this person, subject to completion of vetting procedures, as I previously mentioned. The candidate verbally accepted the offer, but reached the town shortly thereafter to rescind acceptance, citing a recent and unforeseen change in family circumstances, which would impact the candidate's ability to adhere to certain requirements of the job. Throughout this process, the committee and the interviewers have remained mindful that the pool of candidates for employment is highly perishable. We've endeavored to schedule meetings and interview sessions at the earliest opportunities. In the course of interview sessions, the interviewers have been greatly assisted by the role of the assistant town manager, Kimberly Williams, who has interacted with the HR generalist and candidates on our behalf and at our direction. Ms. Williams has participated in the interview sessions by following the town's standard interview questions matrix, which is intended to elicit responses most useful to establish a fair and comparable basis for candidate evaluation. This tool yields responses which help in evaluation of a candidate's behavioral disposition, critical thinking skills, and likelihood of success in the context of a team-oriented position. It is consistent with customary practice observed by the town in the hiring of administrative personnel. This sequence of questioning has revealed significant findings with respect to the qualities and temperament of candidates, which are not necessarily disclosed in the course of conversation focused on past experience and training alone. In this manner, Ms. Williams, acting as facilitator, leaving all decisions of candidate suitability to the interviewers, in each session, the interviewers have been afforded opportunities to interject questions at any time and have done so freely and to their satisfaction. I previously noted to the council that employment recruiting procedures can result in perilous situations for any employer. The most prudent practices to minimize potential liability are those which are judged by human resource professionals to adhere to accepted standards and which are uniform to ensure objective review of candidates. The ad hoc committee met yesterday to consider further candidates. As in prior sessions, the public meeting was adjourned upon the vote of the committee to invoke executive session for discussion of specific candidate qualifications. A pool of 3 candidates was selected. the town will reach each of these individuals to arrange interview sessions. A further pool of candidates was selected for additional consideration if necessary. As a final observation, I'd note for the record that no other member of the council has attended the public meetings of the ad hoc committee. I'd like to extend my gratitude to the committee members, President Rushton, Mrs. Holmberg, and Ms. Williams for their continued assistance. Special thanks are also due to Joshua McGraw for his continued service to the council during this period. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chase. Do we have any comments for Councilor Chase from the council? Councilor Gallagher, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Councilor Chase, when the ad hoc committee decides on which candidates to go forward for the interview session, I guess is what I'm hearing, that goes to the review committee, made up of you, Councilor Rushton, and the previous council clerk, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so what is this, the interview session, at what point is the assistant town manager getting involved?
The assistant town manager has been present during all of the interview sessions.
You didn't
And
say
during
that in the beginning. You didn't say that in the beginning, Councilor Chase. But you said she.
Well, I
got
never
involved.
intended to omit it, Counselor. Ms. Williams has been present for each of the sessions where the interviewers have conducted their interviews.
Okay. So then when the review committee decides on who they want to hire, is the offer is made by Councilor Rushton, or is the offer made, who makes the offer of employment to the individual selected?
Well,
How is it made? I guess, how is it made?
the town administration makes the offer. We're not in a position to do that. We make the selection. We direct that is the candidate to whom an offer should be delivered, and it's done in that fashion. It's the way. It's the customary.
Go ahead. No, I totally respect the work that you and the review committee done, but I totally disagree with that last process. The offer should come from the review committee, or at least the council president, in my opinion.
Well, if I may, Counselor, just to clarify, the interviewers, which you are referring to as the review committee, make the determination themselves as to whom an offer should be directed. And then, acting on behalf of the town administration, and in this case, that would be Ms. Williams, does what she needs to do to actually deliver to the candidate the offer.
So the review committee decides on the salary that the assistant town manager should try to hire this person at? Or the range?
The salary range has been determined long in advance, and it is posted. It's posted, certainly if the posting for the job is still available on the town website, you will see that the salary range is posted there.
And I think I just want to step in here. I feel a little bit that Councilor Chase is getting a little bit beat up here. I think it's semantics about how the offer comes. Here's what I'd say, Councilor Gallagher, is that the review committee and the ad hoc committee have been in charge and have been directing the assistant town manager to take each next step. So they've determined by reviewing resumes, they've determined who would have an interview, they've determined who would have a second interview, they've determined who would be made an offer. And of course, there is a salary range within that. And within that salary range, there is some latitude, although it's a little, because most of it revolves around step increases. So you're showing the range. When salary became an issue, the assistant town manager reached out back to the review committee and asked if we were willing to look or adjust the salary, to which we put the brakes on. One, I had concerns about, it being something that the full council would support. And two, as I mentioned the last time, the former employee still is employed by the town, and I'm concerned about that as well. So I don't feel as though the assistant town manager has taken over the process. I think it's important to make sure that every step of the way that we're following the laws, rules, and regulations around the hiring process, and also that this candidate fits in well with other town employees in which they have to act. Now, they may be responsible to the council in doing our work, but a lot of their day-to-day involvement revolves around working right in the town manager's office. And I think it's important, if we're looking for a particular type of employee, that the assistant town manager was highly involved in that process so that we would have a good fit, not only for the council, but for the town. And so, whether Matt Rushton as president or Councilor Chase as chair of the ad hoc committee should actually make the phone call, I'm not even sure I agree with that, because in both of these candidates in the phone calls would run into things that I wouldn't be able to respond to in the moment. And it would just further delay the potential offer to a candidate and really bringing this full circle. So I think the process is working, and I'd like to just stick with, how it's worked to this point, which we're back at interviewing candidates yet again.
Right, I respect that, but I do think the offer should come from at least you or Councilor Chase as members of the committee. So, but having said that, the process goes forward. Do you think it's the salary, Councilor Chase or Councilor Rushton? Do you think that needs to be adjusted, or is it more to what a candidate is looking for than just the salary? Yeah.
I think that question really revolves to a large extent around the specific qualifications of the candidate we're considering. On the one hand, were we to have a candidate with significant municipal experience and really, on point experience in this area, I think it would make sense to be sensitive to the possibility of the need for extending the range of salary. But I think generally speaking, the salary range has been established by the town with a view toward making the position comparable to other administrative positions of importance in town government. Remember that all of our town salaries are public record. There's a great deal of sensitivity that arises in connection with salaries, of course, and I think that the town has appropriately made a range of salaries for this position and advertised it accordingly.
And I would follow up, Councilor Gallagher, as well, in saying that, although salary was discussed in one of the final applicants, I don't get the sense that even if we had raised it, what was being requested, that would have satisfied all of the concerns. I think what we're running into is the uniqueness of the position and the hours that are required. And I'm not getting the sense of salary. We are getting applicants. And of course, we're looking for the best candidates. So we are taking some time to really do a good job of screening them, particularly with the ad hoc committee and what comes forward for an actual interview. But I think that it's tough to answer the salary. I mean, I think that right now, positions that are out there, you can look every day in almost every job sector, there's bonuses being offered if somebody stays employed for 3 to 6 months. So it's hard to say that current posting is not something that is fair for the current market. And I also don't know if it's ever been, adjusted accordingly with other town salaries in similar positions. I assume that we've done some sort of salary study in the past. I don't know that, but I assume it's been done. But it also doesn't mean that we can't look at this in a lot more detail once we have a new person in. And I think that's the priority right now is filling the position. But to appease your concerns, I think maybe what I'd be happy doing is if we determine that we have a final candidate, we're going to make an offer. Maybe that is a group conference call. That way, if there's questions on the phone that, are outside of the scope of myself or Councilor Chase's purview, Kimberly would be on the phone to answer those, if that would appease your concern that the office coming from the council.
Yeah, well, I'm just one counselor, but I would be comfortable with that, yes.
President
All right.
Rushton,
Yes, sir.
in that particular case, I think we'd have to run it by the town attorney for open meeting law if you were to propose that and agree it. I don't necessarily know we could do that on a conference call. That I just posed that question.
It would probably more likely be something you all would want to discuss in executive session after, some sort of committee posting and meeting. But we can figure out a way to do that.
Okay, sounds
But-
good.
But I will add this. I like the idea, if this could be worked out where the offer letter is prepared for you, President Rushton, and you just sign it. I don't know if that makes a difference, but technically, this is an employee of the council. So I know that within offer letters, they have to have, certain information and language and things of that nature. But I would not see an issue, and I would encourage that you would be the one who would sign it, be the last I sign it and send it off.
Okay, understood. I don't see an issue with that. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Councilor Chase.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, committee reports. Do we have any committee updates? Councilor Wood.
Thank you. I'd like to report that this evening, the Budget and Finance Committee met just before this meeting. And the items that are coming up for fiscal year 22, numbers 11, 12, and 13 on the agenda were unanimously recommended for approval. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other committee reports? Okay, seeing none. Moving on, legislation for action. First item A, Order 0 FY 22-011, transfer order sick leave contractual buyout. The Budget and Finance Committee met on 10/5/2021. Their disposition was unanimous to support. The Finance Committee voted to recommend approval at their meeting on 9/29/21. This measure may be finally considered this evening upon receipt. Entertain a motion for roll call vote.
Mr. Columbotus,
A second,
Thank you. Now, sorry about that, Josh. You can go ahead with a roll call vote.
Mr. Columbotus,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Souza. Mr. Souza, I think you're muted.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Rushton,
Yes.
Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Dr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
yes.
Mr. George.
Yes,
Thank you. 9 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, item B, Order 0 FY 22-012, transfer order old high school buyout agreement with the town of Rainham. The Budget and Finance Committee met on 10/5/2021. The disposition was unanimous in support. The Finance Committee voted to recommend approval at their meeting held on 9/29/21. This measure may be finally considered this evening upon receipt. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
second,
Roll call vote.
Mr. George,
yes,
Mr. Gallagher,
yes.
Dr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Rushton,
Yes.
Mr. Souza,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Columbotus.
Yes.
Thank you. 9 in favor, 0 against.
Item C, Order 0 FY 22-013, ASME contractual settlement. The Budget and Finance Committee met on 10/5/2021. Their disposition was unanimous in support. The Finance Committee voted to recommend approval at their meeting held on 9/29/21. This measure may be finally considered this evening upon receipt. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, move for a roll call vote.
Mr. Columbotus,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Souza,
yes,
Mr. Rushton,
Yes.
Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Dr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mr. George.
yes,
Thank you. 9 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, moving on to old business, we have none. Moving on to new business. Item A, Order 0 FY 22-014. The adoption of the Plymouth County OPEB Trust Program, PCOT. Entertain a motion to refer to the Budget and Finance Committee.
So moved.
second,
And I'll defer to the town manager for any discussion.
Mr. President, I'd only, just for the sake of the public who is listening, this is a piece of legislation the finance director recommends as being the best way to invest the monies that we have already appropriated towards our outstanding OPEB liability, OPEB standing for other post-employment benefits liability. And Plymouth County has proven over the years, we didn't really talk about it while Commissioner Wright was here, but over the years has demonstrated that they've done a very good job investing, and they've outperformed a number of other public investment vehicles available to us. So at this time, we're looking to opt in. They already handle the OPEB. This particular trust already handles the OPEB monies appropriated for about a little over 30 other communities in Southeast Mass.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions from the council? Council Columbotus.
So essentially, Mr. Dutton, reallocating, joining OPEB, we would take assets that we now are retaining in-house on our own balance sheets and essentially investing in some other fund in a collective investment. And that enables us to diversify and make a safer investment. That's
Exactly. It allows us to diversify a little bit more than we otherwise would. It also allows for active management, which we currently do not have. So, and it also reduces the overall expense of managing those funds. So,
Yeah, question.
thank you.
Okay, Council Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I do think Plymouth County's done a good job with this program that they instituted several years ago. The question that I do have, and I'm sure you've looked at this, Mr. Dutton, but this doesn't require any procurement to go out and do something like this with other, does it not? No. All right.
no, it doesn't require a procurement process by which the county has to apply. So it's essentially an intergovernmental relationship,
Yeah.
which is exempt from that procurement process.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, move for a roll call vote.
Mr. George,
yes,
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Dr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Rushton,
Yes.
Mr. Souza, Mr. Souza, Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Wood, Mr. Columbotus.
Yes.
Thank you. 8 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, moving on. Item B, Order 0 FY 22-015, Transfer Order General Fund Free Cash Allocation to Trust Funds. Entertain a motion to refer to the Budget, Finance Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Have a second, just quickly defer to the town manager.
Mr. President, this is our yearly allocation to various funds of our free cash balance. Free cash this year, as most cities and towns in the state, was substantially more than we're used to, and likely quite a bit more than we will see in the future, near future at least. So there is a free cash balance of $2,288,020, which is being allocated throughout five funds, ranging from our regular stabilization fund, to our capital stabilization fund, OPEB stabilization, which we had just talked about, and also our sick buyback fund and unforeseen expense fund. So I would encourage you to refer that.
Any questions from the council? Okay, seeing none, move for a roll call vote.
Mr. Columbotus,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Souza,
Yes.
Mr. Rushton,
Yes.
Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Dr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mr. George.
Yes.
Thank you. 9 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, moving on. Item C, ordinance D FY 22-012 zoning map amendments 168 through 180 Broad Street. Entertain a motion to refer to the planning board and community and economic development committee.
So
So
moved.
moved.
I'll defer to Councilor Gallagher.
Thank you. Just quickly, Mr. President, maybe a week and a half ago, I met with a potential developer who wants to develop the Perkins Foundry land down on Broad Street. The town manager, economic development director was there as well. There was a Zoom feature. I think Councilor Wood was on that Zoom call, and we listened to the potential, the needs and concerns that the developer has. Step one is that a piece of that land needs to be changed. The zoning needs to be changed from industrial to, I believe, taken out of the change from industrial zone to mixed use. So this does that for them to give them at least step one to go forward with their process. There's other issues and things that'll have to come up later on that they'll deal with, but this is step one to get the process moving for them to present something. So what this will do is send this to the send that to committee. It's changing our zoning map and kind of reducing our industrial footprint in that area.
Okay, excellent. Any comments or questions? Councilor Columbotus.
I'm looking at the two maps that are that go along with the legislation, and the first map shows I guess it's the 200 feet back from Broad Street. That's Central Business District. So just that portion of that lot be converted to commercial Central Business District, or the second map shows the whole thing as being changed to Central Business District? So I'd like a clarification. What portion of the parcel would be changed to Central Business District?
If I could refer to the town manager or refer to the economic development director who's on, I see is on the line for that.
Yeah, and the zoning map is actually both color and then both highlighted in the blue and the black to show you. But I apologize. I'll defer to town manager, and if you want to defer to Jennifer.
So I would, instead of me giving you an unclear answer, I'll defer to Jennifer if she could just explain that.
Good evening, thank you. Yeah, so if you are looking at the two maps in front of you, the first map shows how the zoning is today, where it says the pink, where it says 21-144. That pink area is currently zoned industrial. The green areas in front of that is currently zoned Central Business District. The purpose of this zoning change is to zone that pink area that's outlined in blue, Central Business District. So then if you go to the second map, you'll see all of that pink has now become green. So the only change that this is proposing is to change that back half of their lot, which is currently zoned industrial, to Central Business District.
And if I could follow up, does the language of the Central Business District zoning allow for inclusion of a parcel that far off Broad Street?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, move for roll call vote.
Mr. George,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Dr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Chase,
yes,
Mr. Rushton,
Yes.
Mr. Souza,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Columbotus.
Yes.
Thank you. 9 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you. Moving on, item D, resolution RFY 21-011, acknowledgement of the acceptance of catch basin cleaning at Maryland's Landing Land Reclamation Project. I'll defer, actually, I'll entertain a motion to refer that to the Community Economic Development Committee, and
I'll second the motion. Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
okay. I'll use
That was kind
entertain.
of backwards, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, Dennis already seconded it, so I figured,
No, I said,
Yeah.
I'll help out.
I thought Matt was making the
As long
motion.
as we got it.
I thought Matt was making
Okay, I'm
the
just going to defer to the town manager for an explanation.
Thank you, Mr. President. So back in 2017, the council had approved a resolution in support of Maryland's Landing Land Reclamation Project. And for those that are unaware, Maryland's Landing is on the Bridgewater Halifax line. It butts up against a capped landfill. And so Maryland's Landing is attempting to reclaim land after a mining operation for gravel and sand over the course of many years. And just as in 2017, DEP, as you know, or may not know, DEP very closely oversees these reclamation projects. They have site assigned this property for that use. Part of their process, as part of their process, they ask both Bridgewater and Halifax to confirm both towns' understanding that appropriately tested soils can be used as part of that reclamation. So in this case, it's catch basin cleanings. Halifax has approved that. So as you have already moved and seconded, I would recommend that the resolution be referred to Community and Economic Development. So both so the committee can hear from Maryland's Landing representatives directly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, move for a roll call vote.
Mr. Columbotus,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Souza,
Yes.
Mr. Rushton,
Yes.
Mr. Chase,
yes,
Dr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
yes.
Mr. George.
Yes.
Thank you. 9 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to citizens' comments. Are there any citizens on here wishing to speak? Josh, I don't see any.
I do not see anyone.
Okay, moving on to council comments. Councilor George.
Thank you, Mr. President. Don't have any comments for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could start out by just asking, will we be having a special meeting next week, and should we vote for that now, or are we going to stick to the 19th? I guess there is an urgency. I don't know if the rules and I know Frank is going to schedule a rules and procedures meeting soon. I didn't know if we wanted to vote to establish a special meeting or stick to the 19th. Because we have to draft another ordinance to send to rules and procedures. And then rules and procedures have 2 ordinances already there that they can act on and refer back to us. You had talked a little bit about maybe having another council workshop about this too. So I guess.
Councilor Gallagher.
Yep.
Sorry, I apologize.
Yep.
That's really what I'm thinking is on the 19th, having a town council workshop on this particular issue. So we just have an open discussion and move from there.
Okay.
Excuse me, I don't mean to cut in, but we're really running short of time on this. The the 19th, we should be meeting before that to make a decision, a recommendation to the whole council for a vote on the 19th. The state is telling us that it's really under a lot of pressure to meet the guidelines to get this back to us. So we got to push this thing forward and work on it soon, not wait 2 weeks and then another hearing in 2 weeks later. That's really going to put us under a big crunch of not getting it back on time.
I guess I'd leave it to you, Council President. I mean, reach out to the town clerk. I mean, if she
Yeah.
sees the 19th not being an issue, I think you have the authority.
I
You have
think
the
my
authority to do a
process,
lot of things. You could call for a meeting.
yeah, I think the process in my mind, Councilor Souza, is rules and procedures meets and produces a recommendation or document that we move into a workshop the next night as a council to have an open, free discussion. And the 19th, it's voted on without bringing it before the council on the 19th to then debate on the 19th. So I expect there to be a vote on the 19th. And it's, in my understanding, we have till the middle of December to wrap this up, but we should be good to go.
Okay.
I think we're up against a tight timeline, but anyway, I think we need to reach out to the town clerk to verify that time frame, because I think the 19th might be too late, but that's all I have for tonight. I've used up my time, so.
All right, excellent. Councilor Perry.
Oh, right off the bat. For me, I'd just like to thank the BBA and all those involved with the Autumn Fest a week ago this past weekend. We had wonderful weather. We had a pretty good turnout for being a couple of years removed from the last one due to COVID. Had great performances by lots of musicians, including the BR Band and the BR Jazz Band. And a lot of good turnouts for businesses and vendors alike. So I just wanted to credit the BBA, all the volunteers involved in putting it together. They did a great job once again. And also to the staff at BSU for partnering on it once again. So great time had by all, and hope it continues to grow even more for next year. Thank you. That's all I got for time.
Thank you. Councilor Chase.
Thank you. Nothing tonight, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Souza.
Yes, last week I attended the Veterans Council meeting. They are planning a Veterans Day parade on November 11th. It is the Tri-Town Parade, East Bridgewater, West Bridgewater, and Bridgewater. Bridgewater is hosting it. This year, all three towns are really understaffed, okay? Bridgewater has only 3 people on their staff when they used to have 11. West Bridgewater has only 2, and East Bridgewater has only 1. So if you live in Bridgewater and know anyone or yourself who want to serve on this and help, give the town clerk's office a call and they can direct you. The same thing if you know somebody in East Bridgewater or West Bridgewater who's willing to help. You do not have to, I don't know, can you hear me? You do not have to be a veteran to belong to the Veterans Council. But being a veteran myself, I can tell you it's greatly appreciated when the towns come up and do something like this, and the people in the community come in and participate and help get it started and get it going. So if you can, reach out and try to help them, because this is quite a program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Souza. Councilor Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. No comments from me tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Wood.
Thank you. Just briefly, for those listening on Facebook Live and attending here who are interested in the Oak Street Bridge, looks like we'll now have some capital funds. So I think that might become another project that we'll push locally for our district. That's it for tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Wood. Councilor Columbotus.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Thank you. I have no comments tonight. Next item is executive session. I will entertain a motion to move into executive session under MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21(a), to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and to adjourn from executive session.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second,
Thank you. Move for a roll call vote.
Mr. George,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Dr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Rushton,
Yes.
Mr. Souza,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Columbotus.
Yes.
Thank you. 9 in favor, 0 against.